Vítam vás, milí naši diváci, poslucháči, priaznivci týždňa, opäť na Globseku. A mám tu v štúdiu veľmi vzácneho hostia. Je to americký generál vo výslužbe Ben Hodges, ktorý velil americkým silám NATO v Európe. Vie o Amerike všetko, o Európe prakticky tiež, pretože už žije vo Frankfurte a budeme sa ho pýtať na situáciu v Amerike a samozrejme aj na Európu a jej pozíciu a odhodlanie v boji proti agresívnemu Rusku. Okay. Hello Ben, I'm so glad I have you here again. We spoke last year and it was great. So I'm delighted that you found the time. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the privilege.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will start with the American situation. You know, when we look at it across the pond, it might seem a bit chaotic and even worrisome. I don't know. I'm worried, but maybe I'm worried too much. So I will ask a dramatic question. Is America in a civil war? Because the president actually is sending troops against American people. Okay, some of them, he might argue, are non-citizens, but still, it's taking place in America, on American streets. The battlefield has come to LA. So, how do you see it, the protests and the reaction? Is it some kind of, is it a situation where the president is actually breaking some laws?
So I also am very worried. I watch closely to see, what the president's doing in his administration, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, what the Congress is doing or not doing, what the courts are doing, what the media is doing or not doing. I think we're in a very dangerous place. I've never seen it like this in my life, and I'm 67 years old. You use the word chaos. There's always a degree of chaos in the U.S. and all of your audience, my Slovakian friends, know that who've ever been to America. It's a little bit of, but that's to me was always a sign of a vibrant democracy, and democracy is not ballet. I mean, it's competition, pressures between all the different beliefs and factions, but I always felt confident that the law was the rule of law, that ultimately people would obey the law or would be held accountable. Unfortunately, now we have a president who does not feel obligated to, or he turns and twists things in a way that looks a whole lot like an authoritarian, that is not truly interested in protecting the checks and balances system. You've got a very, very weak Congress, that a Republican leadership that they say they will do what the president says. That's not how it's organized or designed in the Constitution. This whole, and by the way, to be fair, we have had a problem in America with our borders and illegal migrants coming in. But I never thought of this as an invasion and this language to militarize things to somehow justify the use of the force that is being done now, I think is inappropriate. But clearly, the Biden administration did not do a good job of protecting borders or helping push, get a policy in place. And they allowed the Trump MAGA followers to capture the narrative.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So now here we are. This crisis in Los Angeles is a manufactured crisis. I mean, if anybody's ever been to Los Angeles, this is a gigantic city. 4 million in the city, 12 million in the metro area, and the riot was in one little place.
Yeah.
And it was
2,000 people or how many?
Well, the numbers, it'd be hard
right?
to say. No, not many at all. Of course, it's grown over time because people move towards this, and of course, as in any riot, there will always be a handful of people that are instigators on the inside that are trying to make more of it. Now, I'm very concerned that where the laws are being broken. The president normally would have to ask the governor, or the governor would have to say, we need help,
Yeah.
okay, in order to federalize the National Guard that belongs to the state. And then to bring in the Marines is absolutely, totally unnecessary, but it's what we would call performative, to show, we got the Marines are coming in here now to show even more force and to intimidate. And these Marines, these are great fit young men, but they are not trained to do this. To
control unrest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole different skill set that you have to train for, and getting 2 hours on how to hold your shield does not count as training. And I think, but this is not isolated. This needs to be looked at in the context of what's happened over the last few weeks. The speech that the president gave at West Point, the military academy, the graduation speech about 2 weeks ago, where he wore his red MAGA hat and made all kinds of comments during that speech that were not relevant to a group of brand new officers. So that should have been a red flag to people. And then the speech he gave at Fort Bragg, North Carolina the other day, 3 days ago, again with his red MAGA hat, and they had filtered out any soldiers that did not look like, well, I'm going to say that did not fit the mold that they wanted to have, and also any soldier that didn't feel comfortable being in this, what was clearly was going to be a political environment, was filtered out.
Yeah.
And then the president got soldiers to cheer when he criticized Governor Newsom, or he referred to migrants as animals. And this was the most politicized use of the military I've ever seen. And the leadership, the military leadership, should have known this was going to happen, and they should have prepared their soldiers for this. So it was a leadership failure there.
Should the leadership have said something out loud, publicly?
Well,
I mean, the military leadership.
Okay, so this is where, in the last part of this context, of course, is this big parade that's going to happen tomorrow. A terrible idea. And when you combine tanks in the streets of Washington, D.C., Marines in Los Angeles, and a speech in front of paratroopers where they're cheering things that he's saying, this has a really ugly, dangerous feel to it. I was sick to my stomach, and I'm disappointed that more retired 4-stars are not speaking out. The ones who are in uniform still, they have to voice their disagreement and push back behind the scenes. They have to tell the secretary, Mr. Secretary, this is illegal, or this is inappropriate, or no, we're not going to do this. But do it behind the scenes.
Is it happening actually? Do you know about some behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, I don't know. I know several of the people, and these are very good quality officers who have been in combat years, so they're physically courageous.
Yeah.
But this is where the test is. Are they able to push back? I have zero confidence in the secretaries. I mean, they're totally political. They are there because the president knew they would say yes to whatever. So Hegseth, the Secretary of the Army, the Secretary of the Navy, these are empty bottles. But the ones in uniform, we take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, not to the president, the Constitution. And this is a real test for us, and our retired officer corps needs to be very vocal, and right now they're not. Yeah,
and as for your colleagues who are not in uniform anymore, are they speaking out?
No, that's what I'm saying. These retired officers, I'm not the only one. There are, I can name 4 that are out of hundreds that should be speaking out.
Now I would like to ask about the military parade. This is something, it's a very sensitive issue to us in the post-communist world. We have lived through spectacles like this, and it's not a good feeling. No. It's an authoritarian, it reeks of totalitarianism, and it reeks of something I think America would never come to experience. Somebody is organizing a military parade as a birthday bash. Yeah. Is that okay?
No, we never do that. The only parades we ever have are when troops came back from Desert Storm, for example, okay, so it was a welcome home, or at the end of World War II, marching down in New York City.
But it's for the troops.
That's correct. This Saturday, June the 14th, is the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army. The Army is 1 year older than the country. So I'm proud of that the Army has always been, never perfect, but always reliable, apolitical, not a political device. And now it's being used that way. We've never had a parade with tanks in Washington, D.C. This is awful.
It's like the Kremlin stuff.
That's exactly what it is. And it's not our tradition. And now this president, whose birthday also is June the 14th, he has hijacked this parade, this day for himself. And I think it's disgusting. And, you know, when you think about the visuals, that what's really happening between Los Angeles, Fort Bragg, and now Washington, this is a demonstration of strength against Americans, not against an adversary. I think this is very wrong.
Yeah, I think he is hijacking the American institutions, the way we have seen it here, for example, and it's very, it's very worrying seeing the same things that are hijacking tiny little Slovakia. Our own authoritarians are behaving this way. And when you see it in America, it's something, you know, we have lost our anchor. Us Central Europeans who have been looking up to America have lost our anchor. But I think we should do it on an optimistic note. Is there a way to somehow counter this? What should the Congress do? What should the citizens do?
Well, the courts, it feels like, are finally, you know, executing their responsibility as one of the three parts of the of our government, of the checks and balances. So now, whether or not the administration listens or just whatever, that's a different story, but at least the courts in many cases are stepping up. Like they just declared that the Trump's use of the California National Guard was illegal, had to stop. We'll see what happens. The citizens, there's more and more protests going on in different cities against different things. There's a lot of protests happening tomorrow in different cities called the No King's Day.
Yeah.
Okay, so these kind of things are happening, and I think we'll see more and more. But then you've got, you know, Mr. Trump has said any protests against the parade will be met with force.
What?
What? I mean, the First Amendment, freedom of speech. He has an obligation.
Is this America?
No. Well, unfortunately, it's America now that the President of the United States threatens anybody that protests against the parade. Okay, this is unbelievable. Our biggest problem, in addition to him and the authoritarian enablers around him, is that the Republican leadership in the Congress are allowing it. They're not pushing back, not in any meaningful way. Speaker of the House, Mr. Johnson, is a complete empty bottle. The biggest disappointment for me is the majority leader in the Senate, Senator Thune. I had always thought he would be that he would not allow the administration to take away the power of the Senate. But he also, he's been an empty bottle as well. And so either through fear or whatever pressure Trump is applying against these members of Congress, it's worked. And so what we have to do is push back legally, peacefully, but push back on every one of these places, the way Governor Newsom in California is, but also next year is the midterm elections. And the Congress, you know, the Republicans control the House of Representatives by like maybe 3 or 4 votes. So there's a good chance if the other side gets organized that they should at least be able to get control of the House of Representatives. But you know, people have to vote, and we had too many people last time stay at home. Now I want to be clear, I was a Republican my entire life, but I was also in the Army. So when you're in the Army, you don't, that's a very personal thing. You vote, but you don't get involved. And so there is a tradition of the military staying out of politics. But after the January 6th assault on the Capitol, I said, I'm done. I cannot defend that. I don't want to be affiliated with that. And so then I became independent. I'm not a Democrat, although I did vote for Democrat candidates this last time. And I've decided that in my post-Army life, that now that I'm retired, my loyalty to the Constitution is as strong now as it was when I was an officer, and I want to do something. Yeah,
it's great. And I have this personal mantra: security is everything, and everything is security now. I see it in Slovakia. Every little political issue is a test of how resilient Slovakia is against Russia. I think that this applies to America even more. But do Americans see it as such? Because when you see the president behaving in an un-American way, you ask, cui bono?
Yeah. So unfortunately, 77 million Americans voted for him in this last election after already having seen him for 4 years and knowing who he was.
Yeah.
77 million voted for him. I suspect now there would be some that would not do it because they're being affected in negative ways. But still, there would be many millions that would vote for him. And there are people that are happy with what he's doing. They like it. I hear from people that I know, as well as on social media. I get called a traitor or socialist or I've lost touch or things like that.
Oh, God. But he is a Putinist. He is pro-Russia. He is an American.
That's what it looks like by his actions.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, he might not be an agent, but what he's doing...
I cannot explain why he is Republican president and that the Congress doesn't force him to do something different.
Well, the last question, what should Europe do?
Well,
you see Europe very closely. So what should we do?
Regain its self-confidence. I mean, if you combine the populations and the economies and the industry, the universities, all the positive things about Europe, if you combine them together, it dwarfs Russia. It's equal to the United States. So, what's the point of having all this wonderful culture and these great centuries of universities if you can't
defend it?
Yes. So I think I understand the challenge. You've got 27 different nations in the European Union, plus UK, plus Norway, plus Canada, come together and agree on protecting what's most important, and develop self-confidence and the political will to use all the talent and potential that you have.
Please be critical. What do we lack? Decision, will.
I think
the will to fight for the values.
I think that in Europe, there's a growing awareness, a realization that Russia is a threat. It's been difficult for some countries to say that for whatever reason, whether it's corruption or nostalgia or whatever. But at the end of the day, there's a reason that thousands of people were willing to risk their life in the former Czechoslovakia and in Hungary against Soviet invasion.
Yeah.
And then I remember the crowds of people cheering when that yoke was thrown off. Recapture that.
Yeah, we should. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thanks for the privilege.
This has been great. Thank you.